Right, it's at cruise level right now, and we're still flying.
Yeah, exactly.
Since we're
I
looking
love
at
flying, so it's good.
I don't.
Let's
just leave it at that. Captain Dung is here with us to look at the aviation sector in 2016. Wole Shadare also, and Kadla Satumari is in Abuja. Now, Mike asked a question earlier about a national carrier. Was it ill-advised to actually liquidate a national carrier? And now you have a President Buhari, who has said to the Ministry of Transportation that they should expedite action on ensuring that Nigeria gets a new national carrier.
That is a good thing to have. The only thing is, can we afford it? Bearing in mind the lessons we learned from Nigeria Airways itself. Now, incidentally, I was an employee of Nigeria Airways at some point as an engineer. And what we found out was gross mismanagement and political interference. And we recommended at some point it be not liquidated, but privatized, just like Kenya did. Just like, well, South Africa has not really done that, but Kenya did privatize, give 26% to KLM. They gave, I think, about 3% to the employees, and the rest is domiciled within Kenya itself, apart from 4% that goes to foreign investors, international foreign. So we think that will have been a better thing to do than to liquidate. Because by liquidating, we lost one key element that we're developing over the few decades that Nigeria Airways operated, and that was infrastructure to support maintenance. They had the facility in Lagos which was capable of actually doing a D check on some light aeroplanes and a C check on the wide body, on the medium bodies like the 737 aeroplanes that they had. Now, since Airways finally shut down and was sold out, we lost that capability because we'll have built on it.
But you have the labor unions actually opposing privatization of the airline.
Well, it was lack of proactive measures at that time. You will have engaged the unions and offered to give them employees of the company supporting services, give them shares in the new private airline. And that's why I mentioned Kenya, Malaysia. These are the things that they did. South African Airways is a government airline, more or less 98%. But they gave the 2% to employees of the company. So the union will say, whatever happens to this company, whoever is running it, you, our members, are going to get rich. And because you are there, you will work even harder because now you would earn money apart from salary.
Exactly.
So
if the airline prospers, you prosper.
That is correct. So liquidation, well, with hindsight, we should have actually still privatized rather than liquidate. With the looking for a national carrier now, can we afford it? Do we have the money? And if we do not, we will get into an agreement with a foreign entity, and I would say we suspect Qatar, where we are not in control of that venture that we call our national carrier.
Okay. Well, let's look at other events that shaped the industry in 2016. We're talking about the aviation. Now, many domestic and foreign airlines were forced to scale down operations to cut costs, while some others like Iberia and United Airlines left the country. Wole talked about that earlier on.
In fact, 3 domestic airlines shut down operations temporarily in 2016. Nigeria lost her status as West Africa's aviation hub this year due to the harsh business environment. The planned concession of 4 viable airports also generated heated debates among players. Operators and stakeholders in the sector and aviation unions also protested against the concession proposal. As a matter of fact, I think that concession has not really seen the light of the day now.
Well, they will say there are partial concessions here and there. But the restructuring of some aviation agencies also led to the sack and demotion of some staff. And security at airports was also brought to the fore to stem the tide of stowaways and forestall terror attacks. Now, in the period under review, the industry also witnessed a major industrial unrest following a one-day strike by Arik Air workers over sundry issues. It is not all bad news after all.
Nigeria did not record any plane crash thankfully, within the country's airspace in 2016. The Nigerian government also gave a special sectoral allocation of forex to airline operators in the secondary market intervention sales. Now, 3 Nigerian carriers, First Nation, Medview Airlines and Dana Air, got their international operations safety audits. That's the IOSA certification.
All right, that's maybe a little interesting, I must say. So he hasn't been gloom and gloom all the way. But let's get back to you, Wole. We were talking earlier on about the bilateral air safety service agreement. Now, we also know that connecting flights within African or between African countries hasn't been so much. Flights from Nigeria, Kenya, South Africa, maybe Ghana, just a few other countries. But how has this really hampered the flow? Because you said we have more than enough agreement with countries of the world, but not so much with African countries.
Absolutely, because I think 20, 30 years ago, the leaders in Africa met in Yamoussoukro on how to liberalize air services in Africa. And it took more than 20 years for them to have an agreement. We moved from Yamoussoukro declaration to Yamoussoukro decision. Okay. And what it entails is that they are going to liberalize air services within Africa. But we have a hindrance, the hindrance of bilateral air services agreement and ability of leaders to protect their airlines. And what he tries to say is that we are trying to break this monopoly, try to break these barriers to allow an airline to take off from point A to point B without barriers. And for more than 20, 25 years, they had difficulty in agreeing to liberalize air transport services in Africa. And in Africa, just last year, 15 countries signed that declaration. Nigeria is part of those countries. So most times it's even very difficult for you to travel from Algiers to maybe a place like Monrovia. We do not have connectivity. At times, you even have to travel to Europe before
and
connecting back to.
Exactly.
So it became very, very difficult. And Nigerian airlines have championed this liberalization in West Africa. I think we are championing that area. We have about 3-4 Nigerian airlines dominating air transport services in West Africa. But we haven't done that so well because the likes of Arik are having issues. The likes of Aero are having issues. And until recently, Medview decided to connect Accra, Monrovia, and Sierra Leone. And that's a very fantastic one because people can do their businesses in Lagos, move to Accra, and move to these other areas. So we've had difficulties in moving from one place to the other. It's even very, very easy for you to move from here to South America than for you to even get to Equatorial Guinea. It becomes very, very difficult. You have to go to Europe or you have to go to maybe Nairobi before you start connecting to your backyard. It became a very, very difficult. What African airlines are trying to do, or what heads of state are trying to do, is that let us liberalize air transport services in Africa for people to do their businesses, for trade to blossom in Africa. But we are not there yet. Okay,
let's bring in Kadla Sachumari. Wole Shadare is recommending liberalization of air services for the airline industry, especially as, you know, we keep hearing about plans to make Nigeria the hub of the West African region. Number one, what do you think, what impact do you think the global aviation market had on the Nigerian aviation sector in 2016, first off? And what would it take to bring back those airlines that have totally packed and, you know, left the country, and those that have scaled down operations to actually look at the sector again and say, look, it's time for us to do business?
Well, it will take us just doing what we were doing before they were attracted to Nigeria. Most importantly, getting the infrastructure issue right. Once we're able to do that, and some of the challenges that made them leave in the first instance, if we're able to look into them, I believe that they will return. Nigeria is a very, very large market. I remember one time one of the managers of the foreign airlines said that if you stopped any of their aeroplane mid-air anywhere in the world, not in Nigeria airspace, you will probably get about 5 to 10% of the passengers that are Nigerians. So the market is large. A country of 170 million people and about 20 million active flyers. I think every airline would like to partake from that. Like I said, the most important thing is getting the infrastructure right, getting those things, because safety is very, very important in the industry.
Okay, Dung, let me come to you on this. We have about, records show that we have about 500, a little above 500 licensed pilots. We have about a little above 900 licensed engineers, aviation engineers, and the list goes on. When it comes to adequate personnel, skilled personnel for this industry within Nigeria, is that adequate? Is that enough?
It is not adequate.
Okay.
And
That is not enough.
Okay.
All right.
All right. I was asking Dung, Kadla, you just hold on a little, and then let Dung answer this question. Maybe we can come back to you shortly. Thank you.
Okay. Okay.
Yes.
Anyway, yes, thank Kadla for trying to help me out. It is not adequate. And adequate is not just looking at the numeric value, but the skill and competent content. And one step back again. Nigeria Airways had been operating for a few 10, 15, 20 years. And they were training both Nigerian and foreigners in all aspects of the industry. Now, what we lost, and I challenge any operator to prove to us now that they have a Nigerian engineer who has recent experience in doing a C check. Despite the fact that we have engineers who are chief engineers in their airlines now, most likely not one can go and do a C check. And that is why they have to send all of these aircraft abroad. And that used to cost an average of $1 million. And one of the factors or cost elements that escalates, and we have seen, we don't know whether it's a conspiracy, but you are giving an initial costing for a C check. You send your aircraft there, and they come back and add about 40% only for human labor.
Who is they?
All the organizations abroad that we have to send these aircrafts there for maintenance. It's a very slight thing that you cannot, because they tell you that, oh, we checked this thing and we have to spend longer time. It's not about the fault, but just man hours.
Okay, we'll come back to this. Let's go on a break, and we'll take a break shortly, and we come back on the program. And don't forget, at top of the hour will be time for us to go for the news update, and Nee will be taking us there when that time comes. Stay with us on TVC Breakfast. But if you're joining us, you're watching TVC Breakfast. We're discussing the aviation sector in the year 2016. We have with us in the studio Dung Pam, a pilot, Wole Shadare, an editor, and Kadla Sachumari, CEO of Aerokeys Nigeria. You were making a point before we went on a break.
Yes. With regard to the skills shortage, you have the numbers, but those numbers are not actively engaged in areas where they fit into the industry. For instance, we have approximately 200 unemployed fresh pilot graduates who have spent approximately $50,000 to train themselves. And out of this, I have on record at least 40 of them have spent an extra maybe $20,000 to go and get a Boeing 737 typewriter, and they are still unemployed. So you can see that the skills is also tying down capital as well as taking away time from this young aviation enthusiast. We also have engineers who have not gotten the required experience to do the job totally.
Okay. Wow. All right. That's so much to take in, but we'll come back to that again.
All right, we're looking at the scorecard for the aviation sector in 2016. Our guests are very much here in the studio, from Captain Dung to aviation editor Wole Shadare, and of course CEO Aerokeys Nigeria Kadla Satumari. Let me stay with you, Kadla. Now, government says it will address the challenges of infrastructure, which you have pointed to as one of the major challenges in the aviation sector: navigational safety, airport security, manpower shortage, and all of that. Now, which do you think of all of this are the immediate challenges that need to be tackled as quickly as possible if 2017 is going to fare better, or the aviation sector will fare better in 2017?
Well, without any doubt, is the infrastructure. Infrastructure is the bedrock, and it's very, very important that that is addressed. But it should be addressed systematically, without severe disruption to already comatose operations. Just like I made reference to the Abuja airport closure that is being considered in February, I think with all the experts that we have in the industry and the issue of being proactive, like one of our contributors said earlier, we ought to have noticed when the runway was deteriorating to the extent that it has gotten us now that we have to do some drastic measures to address the issue of the repair is very unfortunate. We need to be asking questions. What happened to the second runway? What happened to the funds that were allocated to it? Why was it not executed? All those issues are issues that we need to tackle heads on, and on doing that, we should not compound the existing problems. So that is my take on that. The infrastructure should be addressed. Not only the Abuja airport, all other airports that have similar problems should be addressed as well, but we should do it in a way that it will not disrupt flight operations.
All right, Kadla, let me stay with you on this. With the kind of market and the location, Nigeria is very strategic when it comes to aviation, but we don't seem to have so many Nigerian investors going into the business of airlines. Why is that so?
Well, aviation industry is a very capital-intensive business, and it requires also highly skilled workforce. And you can see from the stories of Nigeria Airways down to the current operators that we're having presently. Initially, I stepped in when you asked if you have enough skilled manpower in the industry. You know, because of the cost, just like the captain said, we send a lot of pilots and engineers to train abroad in collaboration with our partners, and they come back home. Just like he said, no airline will accept the pilots without type rating because they don't have skills that is required for them to go into the flight deck to start flying. They have to expend a lot of money to do that. And Nigerians, we want immediate turnover. Majority of Nigerians will want to start a business today and by next year begin to post profit. It is said that the best profit margin that an airline business can produce is not more than 13% so far on record. So this is not the kind of investment that typical Nigerians would want to go into, to invest millions of dollars and may not even have profit. And if they have profit at the end of the day, it's going to be less than 20%. So these are some of the challenges. And also, those who have the money and would want to invest, they see the government policies and the infrastructure problem we're talking about as impediment. They would rather take it to a sector where they can invest half of that amount and they are guaranteed on return of their investment. So this may be some of the reasons why a lot of Nigerians don't want to invest in the industry. And also, it requires someone with passion for the industry, passion for aviation, for you to be able to commit that kind of resources, the kind of time that is required, and also get the right qualified personnel, which does not come cheap. So there are so many things that may be attributable to why some Nigerians of means don't want to invest in the industry. Rather, they would rather get their private jets for some of them who have decided to do that.
All right, let's come back to the studio. Of course, you talked about the profit margin that is not entirely that high, that would want to encourage anyone who does not have the passion to go into the sector globally. About 5.6% or so was made in the full year 2016. But the aviation sector, the aviation industry is seen as a catalyst that can actually bring about economic growth and development. How can we really achieve that in Nigeria, Captain Rwung? And of course, I'd like Shadare to weigh in on that too.
Most of the problems we're having now is because of infrastructure and access to funds. Now, even if you are able to make a profit margin of say 20%, what is inflation in Nigeria now, considering our local airlines sell tickets in Naira? They cannot sell it in dollars. And the only time they earn a little bit of dollars is when they fly abroad, those of them who fly abroad. So you can see that there is really an organic problem. So it's difficult to act outside that. Infrastructure is the other part. We need to fix that. According to the World Economic Forum for a couple of years now, the inadequate infrastructure accounts for 26.5% for why businesses do not thrive in Nigeria, not just aviation, across the board. And corruption accounts for about 19%, and access to funds accounts for 12.7%. Just these three, 60% of the impediments to doing business in Nigeria. Policy somersaultive incomes lower than that, and government bureaucracy. But these are some of the things that we need to prefer solutions for. How can we tackle infrastructure? Unfortunately, there is no magic wand for infrastructure. It needs planning, and needs money, and needs effort. So there is no shortcut to that. If we don't have the money, common sense says concession. Concession itself has to be done transparently, accountably as well, and have reviews all through the process so that we can evaluate whether we are on track to achieve the objective or not.
Shadare.
Shadare, let's hear you briefly before we go.
Most times I even wonder how airlines remain in business in Nigeria, because the profit margin is very, very low. I'm even shocked that Kadla says about 20%. It's less than that.
Yeah, he said less than 20%.
Oh, less than 20. Oh, I agree with him.
I think he said
he said the best was 13.
13.
That is usually 5 to 7% or 3 to 7%.
And if you look at aviation contributes or contributed about 2-3% to the GDP, I think, in 2014. I doubt if we still have that this year.
I hear it's somewhere around 1.4%.
Maybe
1.4, yes.
So it's quite a difficult year for airlines. And the problem with airlines is that every other person makes money from airlines. The catering service, the fuel marketers, except the airlines. And in Nigeria, you ask yourself, these airlines collect Naira, and they go for their maintenance and pay dollars. Is highly dollarized. to me, I don't know how they will remain in business if they continue with what they are presently doing. Airfare is just about 35,000 naira, 40,000 naira. I think about $100. You cannot charge less than $100 if you want to remain profitable. And $100 with the exchange rate we have now is about 40,000 naira, between 38 and 40,000 naira. So you can't go below that. If you go below that, you're shooting yourself.
A lot of Nigerians will be looking for an alternative to get to their destination.
Because you ask yourself, how many people can even
afford that? All right.
And that is why the road transport people are really competing with the airlines.
Unfortunately, that's the much time can permit us right now. Wole Shadare, thank you for coming on the program.
My pleasure.
And Dung, thanks for coming on the program as well. All right, we also thank Kadla Satumari for joining us. Thanks for joining us from Abuja.